Hey, everybody, welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and today I've got Ruben Alvarez on the show. Ruben, welcome.
Hey man, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and especially like this is the first time we've met, so I know that there's going to be a lot more coming from this, so I appreciate you.
Absolutely. I love podcast interviews because it's a great way to connect with a new person.
Yeah.
And then, I'll dig into your story, ask questions, learn more about you. You'll learn about me. And then, boom, we have a new connection, right?
Exactly.
So I'm really excited. I have your bio pulled up here, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for the audience in case anything's changed or, you want to highlight anything that's maybe not written on there.
Yeah, I mean current, right? I am a marketer. It's social media, it's digital. My wife is our graphic designer, so we do like print. If anybody needs like to put it on paper still or like flyers, we don't do the printing. We just do the actual graphic work and stuff like that, right? I've been doing that for about it's going on 9 years now, right? Like I was working at a manufacturer for a long time and then that got cut from me like very, very abruptly. I'm like thinking I'm gonna make partner one day and just, you have this idea and then the business owner has a different idea and nothing against them, right? Because we're all business owners, but everybody has to do what's right by them. And for us to think that somebody else is going to look for our best interest before theirs is kind of a little immature on our end. So I had that reality check. I decided to start my own business. We've been doing it for about a year and a half now. And we broke six figures within the first like 7 months. And nothing to say of like, hey, I know what the secret is. I cracked it. But I think that I've been working business to business for a long time. And if you're looking to get past six figures, I think that's pretty much the way you got to do it. You're either going to sell a lot of stuff to a lot of people, or you're going to sell very few things to people who can spend a lot more. So that's what we're doing. We work primarily with manufacturers. You guessed it, right? Like that's what we know.
Yep.
And business coaches, just because we understand both those industries very well. So
that's exciting. And I mean, you already just started right off the bat with like a nugget of information that you can either sell a bunch of small stuff to a bunch of people or maybe bigger ticket stuff to higher end clients, businesses, for example, or business coaches that are willing to pay a little more high ticket. So that is such a big thing. Like I've seen that meme of like different ways to make $1 million. You sell X amount of this price, or it obviously gets less as the ticket price goes up. You have to sell fewer to get to that, whatever your monetary financial goals are. So thanks for sharing that, man. I mean, that one thing you mentioned about you thinking you're going to make partner, and of course the other business owner had different, plans in mind. That does happen from time to time. And like you mentioned, it's a little naive sometimes for us to think like other people are going to be super friendly all the time and be always fair. Like things do happen. And I guess that was very formative in just everything that you've been on, the journey of creating your own marketing company and getting your own clients, getting to six figures in 7 months. That's a great accomplishment as well. So congrats on that. And, there's always got to be a little bit of struggle in there somewhere.
No, there is. I mean, the thing is that I believe that if you're selling the right product, it's very easy to get to six figures by yourself. You and one other person, right? You and a partner.
Yep.
You get to past six figures, you're screwed, right? and that's what happened is that I had a very small team and we got to a certain number. And I'm like, dude, okay, what do we do now? And even if I hired someone, there was so much that was on my plate that it would just end up screwing me over.
Right. So you just were working crazy amounts, I would imagine.
It's not the amount, it's that they're like, so for example, yesterday was Monday, right? And I was able to take Monday off and be free. Like there's stuff that I could do to advance the business, but the actual core business doesn't revolve around me. And that's what it was before, is that I had people that would help me, but let's say Monday I had something that needed to get done. Tuesday I had something that needed to get done. And so I felt stuck in this like almost trap, right? Like I'm trapped in my own business because if I don't work on Monday, Tuesday stuff, all of a sudden it's like everybody's like, where's Monday stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the worst thing, because if you work a job and you put in Monday off and you're sick, you get Monday off, right? But if you have a business and Monday needs to get stuff done, you're over here with like COVID or something, and you're having, oh God, I gotta get. So it's the dumbest thing, right? Like you have to find the way to set those systems and those processes from the beginning. And if you haven't, and the time comes to where you need to do them, just stop putting them off and just do them, because that's what it eventually needs to get done either way for you to keep going.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, for those who've never done that before, they may not even know that's the right step until something like that happens. They get sick or they have to be out of their business for a while and things, the ball is going to get dropped at some point or someone's like spinning the plates. If you've heard of that phrase as well, like a plate's going to fall and break in a way in your business. And that will probably open your eyes for those listening. If you're not able to be proactive, you'll have to be reactive, which will probably cost you some lost clients, some lost customers, maybe missed revenue possibly as well. So I love what you said there. And I'm kind of right there as well. Like I'm building the team. Like I need to hire a couple key people because my phone's still ringing. I'm in real estate, for example. And I'm like, man, why am I getting all the leads? Like I have to follow up with everyone. This is really annoying. And I can forward it to people, but I'd like to just take that one more step that you've taken of having someone else accountable and in charge. So when I'm off, Monday stuff gets done on Monday by that other person who's working.
Yeah. And it's weird because we don't want to slow down, right? Like that's the problem, is that you see it as a slowdown of like, I can get it done in 30 minutes now, or I can train someone in 3 days and then they might make an error like next week. And then the following week, something else might happen and they still don't understand it and all this other stuff that kind of goes on in our head. But the reality is that like, if you took one full day to train someone, just one day, they'd be trained.
Yeah.
And that's typically what and it's a weird block that we have in our own head. But what's really strange about it is that I noticed when I did one person, it was very easy for me to then do another person and another person, another person, because I saw that I was actually getting so much benefit from that one person that I'm like, okay, all right. I got to slow down. Let's do an hour a day. I'll show her exactly what I meant. And the other thing is that you can always have, like we think, okay, if I have to show this person, it has to be in person or it has to be on a call, right? But we never think, hey, if I just do a Zoom and I do a screen share
and record it,
I can send it to them. We could do it live. It's an hour. She understands it. Instead of saying like, hey, go to the top right and trying to explain it, you just go, hey, look, here's the top right. And so there's so many different ways. I think it's just about being open. Like you have to open up your mind and say, this is going to be better, and truly believe it. And then just let go of all of the negatives or the what ifs, the doubts, and you just get a really good system.
Yeah. And one thing, like you mentioned there, you have to let go of the negative doubts or whatever, the feelings that you have that it's not going to work. Whenever you surround yourself with other people who've done it, that kind of opens your eyes to like, wow, I thought this wasn't possible, but this person's doing it and that person's doing it. There must be a way for me to do that same thing in my business. So I wanted to touch on that because that is such a key piece of understanding what is possible. Because sometimes we only see what's in front of us. It may be completely obvious to somebody else who's at the next level, but because we're stuck at this certain level, we can't see what that other person thinks is like right there. So learning, podcasts, books, interviews, that's all ways that I found to learn. Is that kind of similar for you as well?
Sort of. So my big thing is that I always look at somebody who has more than me.
Same.
And I think they either have a secret or they have an advantage. And the thing is, I always want them to have a secret, but sadly, a lot of the times they have an advantage. Okay. And what I mean by that is like, so we'll look at somebody who has another digital marketing agency, right? And then you're like, dude, this person like has a ton of clients and this and that, right? And then it's like, okay, what's their secret? And it's like, well, dude, they've been in RTA syndicate for 10 years or like right when it started, and you're like, if I join right now, I can't have that same secret because it's past, right?
Yeah, I got to find a new secret.
So it's an advantage. But if instead somebody were to be like, hey, look, what you're doing wrong is actually you just don't have a system for this person. And if you did, and if you hired VAs, and if you got past this idea of like, I need to have all my people in the United States for it to be a legitimate business instead of hire a few VAs right now and then grow the business that way, then you would actually be ahead. Then you got to look at that and be like, holy crap, that might be the secret. And my ego might be what's holding me back, not anything else. So it really comes down to that. Like, look at, like, you can read the podcast and the books and everything. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm reading this great book right now, which is called Attention Merchants. And I'm in the part of my career where I literally just want to look at what gets attention, whether it be controversial, whether it be good, whether it be bad, whether it gets people to buy, whether it gets people just to remember your name. Like what is that formula, what is that? That's the secret to me. You know what I mean? Like if you can crack that secret, it's golden. So I find different information through books, but when I'm looking at like how to grow my business, I always go, what is that person doing? And if it's something that I can mimic, you better believe that I'm going to copy them.
Yeah, for sure. As Russell Brunson would say, like funnel hack them, right?
Exactly. Yeah, reverse engineer it until you figure out what they're doing.
Definitely. And I love what you said there. I mean, the attention merchants, I wrote that down. That sounds interesting. I know Gary Vee talks a lot about like attention as a currency. It's all about attention, social media, eyeballs, like what gets attention, what do people care about? Because that's really where it matters. Like you're buying people's time when you get their attention. They are spending time on your products, your courses, your website. Like that's where you want them. And then I see the shark behind you. It's like you're luring them in and then boom, you know, that shark attacks and they buy your products. And of course, it's a good thing. If you're selling good stuff, like you shouldn't feel bad about it. I love that. Attention merchants. And you said that's a book?
That's a book. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It's one of the only books that I found on attention, because the reality is that like there's secrets in sales, but everybody can learn sales, right? Like whether you like it or not.
Yep.
Attention and good marketing. I mean, like really, really good marketing. You know what I mean? Like Kim Kardashian, like that type of marketing. You might think like, oh man, they're just doing stuff that's like crazy, right? But you're like, dude, the way that they do it, the way that Kanye does it is different. The way that Steve Jobs does it is different. Grant Cardone, like there's a lot of people that do it different.
Yeah.
And the reason that they do it different is because they crack this code of it's not marketing, it's not branding, it's not sales, it's attention. And there's disruptions and there's psychological patterns that we want to see that would make us feel good. And it's not even like, I'm not even at the point where I'm just like, how can I trick someone into buying my product, right? I'm like, how can I put out a piece of content that's so like insane that they're just like, who the F is Ruben Alvarez?
And they want to share it too, probably.
Share it.
Check this out. This is cool.
How do we take up real estate in someone's mind?
Yeah.
And stay there, you know what I mean? Like rent free, like that's the term nowadays. Like what lives in your head rent free? I want to live in people's heads rent free, and just like I want to know how to do that, right? And we've been testing a lot of this stuff. But what did we do recently? Oh, so in our group, we posted this picture of it's because it's me and my business partner, and I clown on him a lot. So he went to Colombia, and I put a rose in his mouth, and we put a mustache on him, and he looks like a perv. So at first I sent it to, because one of his friends did a filter with him and a mustache, so we sent it to him. They put it in a group, then we put it in our group, and we were about to post about a course that we're gonna do live today. But I'm like, dude, okay, if we went from like kind of okay post, we were talking about a member, to just the course, we're gonna lose people. Like it's all about us, it's nothing about them, it's nothing spectacular. So we put that picture, and dude, we got like I think 40 people to comment on it. People were laughing at each other's comments and stuff. It was just like this like party, you know what I mean? It was so awesome. And then the next day we post about our thing, and typically we get like 10 people to watch it live, and then we get like 70 people to watch it total. We've had 20 people watch it live, and we have like 80 people that already watched it in like just a few hours. Wow. But it's because we stayed in their head, you know what I mean? Like we reverse engineered it to say like, how do we get people entertained and laughing, so that the next time that we put out something, they're like, I might as well just watch it just to watch it, you know?
That's so true, man. Because especially when you do stuff like humor or entertainment, I think that's why there's so much value in free content like YouTube videos and podcasts. You're giving so much value that whenever you make that little soft pitch or sale, or like, hey, here's this course if you want to sign up, you're going to get more engagement than if you just did the post about the course and you didn't do the mustache rose picture, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That helped spark engagement and communication and like laughter, maybe even some connections of like people who DM each other and connect that didn't know each other before that. And then when you make the post, like you get more people. And so I think that's been attention. Attention is really everything. And how do you get that? I mean, obviously that's what everyone's trying to figure out. Like, what's the secret to make a viral video? It's kind of hard to tell. But I mean, you said you've been getting some traction in your Facebook group and on YouTube in a way as well, right? So I'm assuming a lot of what you're testing has been working out.
Yeah. So, and just so that if anybody's like, you know, in our group and you're listening to this right now, we're not doing psychological hacks on you, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to say like, how can we bring the most value in a way that people actually want to see it, not in a way that we want to see it. Right. Because we have like all these courses and everything, but at the end of the day, like I'm always looking at like, how can I get more people to actually engage with something because it actually connected with them, not because I tricked them into it, right? So
Right.
even on podcasts and on my courses, not on the course, I'm sorry, my status updates, it's the weirdest things. I have to change the way I speak to make it seem like one person is listening. To like right now it's me and you, and I
Yep.
have to think there's a third person right now. And
Who's
that's why I'm like,
listening?
or even you, if you're listening right now, right? Whereas before I'm like, or if anybody's listening out there right now, and it's like that just doesn't work because everybody's like, who's
You
everybody?
have to
You know what I
act
mean?
like, hey, for that person listening, I know you're struggling right now. Like just talking to
Yes.
them like they're there, even if they're not, because whoever is listening to that.
And think about this. They're listening alone. It's not 10 people right now that are gathered at a party listening to our podcast. You know what I mean?
Maybe, hey, if they're true fans, maybe they have like a fan watch party of your videos.
But out of everybody, if there's 100 people listening and we say everyone, there's one group of people that it applies to
That's
and everybody
everyone.
else is so they're in the minority. So when you do, even
Yep.
when you do a post on Facebook or a video on YouTube, we tend to say, "Hey everybody, how's it going? Ruben Alvarez here," right? Where instead it's like, "Hey, look, this video, I know why you're here. You saw a product, you hate blah blah blah. You came here. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I hate this product too." Or you know what I mean? But like you're
Yeah.
speaking as a one person. So with status updates, I noticed that when I would put out a new podcast episode, I would say, "Hey, there's a new episode. If anybody wants to listen, right, something like that." Now what I do is, let's say that it's you. I'm like, "Hey, I met this guy a while back. I wanted you guys or I wanted you to watch this episode because this guy knows about real estate. If you are looking to get into real estate, if you have questions, you need to reach out to Chris Bello. In this episode, me and him discuss these things that will benefit you." And then I list them, right? It sounds normal to say, but when you're writing it, it's really trippy because you're like, who the F am I talking to right now?
Yeah.
We're not used to talking to one person since the status update.
Right.
So try it. Trust me. It's the weirdest thing.
It's crazy. Cause like I start every podcast is like, hey everybody, welcome to the entrepreneur. Now I'm gonna be like, hey, you, welcome. Like now I'm really focused. I never thought about that. I literally am always like, hey everybody. But when you're talking to that one person, they feel like you're actually engaging with them. And it probably hits a lot different than if they think you're making this for the whole world. Like it sounds like that you're making that piece of content exactly for them.
Yeah. But and you are, right? Like if you say like, hey, welcome back, blah, 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 right? Like the person, hey, thank you for tuning in. I know you've been listening to this show for a while now. And today this podcast, and people don't know, I got my microphone right here. That's why I'm not just like coming in lower and lower for no reason. But yeah, it's you talk to the one person, right? So right now there's one person listening and that person is like, oh my God, they're talking about me. And we are talking about you, by the way. So think about it. Like I just said that.
And this right now.
Exactly. It's a trippy thing, but we don't think in that way. And even when we do like an Instagram video, right? Like the person listening right now, they're going to be tripped out by this, but you're making an Instagram video. You hold the camera in selfie mode and rarely do you ever say, hey, today I had a thought I wanted to share with you. You always start a video and you go, hey, everybody, or hey, how's it going? Look, I wanted to share a video with you guys. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not conditioned to think that way.
Interesting. No, I'm learning a lot here, man, because I do all those things like, hey, everybody, and oh, what's up, everybody? It's Chris Bello. But you need to, you see the really good ads that interrupt you on YouTube. Like, hey, 1 second, I know you're struggling with this problem and I want to make sure that like everyone does that. And I kind of watch just out of interest, like, oh yeah, what is this? Like, what are they talking about? I do have that problem. Like, dang it, this ad's working on me, right?
Yes. Yes. Ty Lopez, same thing. Hey, here in my garage, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
He's talking to you right in the eye. And it was so informal back in the days of the ads because the ads used to be so professional that he had his phone and it was so blurry, like not professional. Exactly. That it almost seemed like it was a FaceTime to you. And it was just, it's brilliant. Like that's the whole point of like attention merchants. And I don't know if your podcast is like rated PG, but we're thinking of writing this PDF book or whatever.
All good.
And it's going to be, I don't even want to give it away just because it's going to be hilarious, but it's going to be something to the, if you can probably figure it out, but it's not going to say attention merchants. It's going to say attention something else.
I think I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool, man. And that's what it's all about. Cause at the end of the day, even all the value that we're providing, the information we put out, it all comes down to, I love what you said there. How do you rent free space and like real estate in someone's mind? Because as you start to become more apparent to them, you become part of like what they think about every day. Like you are their podcast they go to. You're their YouTube video that they watch every day. How do you be that person?
Yeah.
And obviously that's something that we're all trying to figure out. And that's what we're here to do by creating these conversations. But whenever you do that successfully, that's when you get clients and you get raving fans and people join your Facebook groups and leave you 5-star reviews. And so we obviously want to maximize that and minimize the like turning people away from us maybe by doing the things like, hey, everybody.
Yeah. I mean, just think about it, right? Like, everybody has a different experience, but like if I say Coca-Cola, what's the first thing that comes to your head?
The polar bear, probably.
The polar bear. I think of the polar bear too, right?
The polar bear.
and so think about this, right? Like anytime you see Coke, you might think of the polar bear. So
right.
why is it that we can't like get rid of that polar bear because it's ingrained in us? And I really honestly think that if people do already crack this code, because now when you see a garage in a Lamborghini, you think of Tai Lopez, right?
Yeah.
But if you crack that code, you won.
Absolutely.
Like it's a weird thing to say that you live in someone's head, and by thinking of one thing, they're automatically going to think of you.
It's crazy.
Strange.
Well, even like I remember some kid was like, try not to think about a pink elephant. Like now you're thinking about it. So but to really stay in someone's mind, because we have so many thoughts and we're overwhelmed by so much information. It really has to be something compelling and powerful for them to see it and for it to stick with them. Because otherwise, yeah, you see the pink elephant, you hear about this and that, and you forget about it all by the next day. How do you maintain that peace where tomorrow, like I have a few people whose podcasts I've been listening to consistently, and they're on my radar, right? Like, oh, they have a new episode. I'm going to listen to that. Oh, they have this event coming up in May. I'm buying tickets to go fly out there. So that is extremely powerful for everyone listening. Make sure to focus on what kind of information are you putting out there? How do you really maintain that attention from your clients, your customers, your podcasters, your interviewees as well? Like if I want to maintain your attention, like how do I stand out? Maybe I market our podcast so well that you get a bunch of traffic and you're like, dang, Chris really went above and beyond to bring me traffic. Like I'm going to remember him. Versus other shows you go on where like they don't even tell you when your podcast goes live. Maybe I don't know. I'm just being creative here.
Yeah. So it's there's always a point of impact, right? Like there's always one point where you drive a specific message so hard that you almost leave people unable to forget you.
Yeah.
And it's strange because there's not one point that I've had yet. But there is multiple points that are very large for me that I can say, this is why, right? So one of them, like you said, is the shark. I use the shark as part of my brand for my podcast, but then it translated into like a lot of other stuff. My Instagram, I try to have super polished, right? So people like know that my Instagram is polished and they're like, dude, look at this guy's Instagram. Believe it or not, my hair. Like, so when you find these little things that people like tend to like just say, hey, almost make fun of you for, just exploit them.
Yeah.
And most people are like, well, I don't necessarily want people to see my kids. And you're just like, dude, well, if you love your kids and you're doing it just because you feel weird about it, like find out why you feel weird about it. And if it's for a good reason, then it's a good reason. But if you love your family and people are like, hey, we want you to be a family person and we'll like every single one of your posts and you'll feel good about it because you're a dad and I'm a dad, be a dad. You know what I mean? Like stop holding yourself back. Like there's a lot of stuff. We just talked about, John with the rose, like he was able to make fun of himself. People love that. So just exploit what you have and people will remember you.
That's powerful, man. And I did take a look at your Instagram. Yeah, it's really clean. And you've got the quotes on the right, your lifestyle pics, your pic with your wife. Like I really love the whole look of it. It's very, very well planned and thought out. And you're right that like when people go there, they're like, okay, this is legit. You've got everything, what you do. There's no question about what value you provide to your audience and what you're out there, the content that you're putting out every single day. Whereas like sometimes you may go to someone's page and you're not really sure what do they offer, what value do they provide? Like, do they have a podcast? Like, I can't even tell.
I think that when you start something, whatever it is, you always have to think, would I want that life? Would I want that profile? Would I want like anything? Would I want that YouTube channel? And the thing is that like even where I record at, right? Like I don't think that it's great because I bought other stuff that hasn't come yet, right? But I think like would the person watching that be like, all right, that looks decent, right? I like that. I like that, right? And it always just comes down to like, would you respect yourself if you wanted to buy from yourself? If you wanted to be coached by you, if you anything that it is, right? If I talk about my YouTube channel and people go to my channel and they're like, dude, this dude doesn't even have a banner. He has 4 videos. He's talking about like, there's no respect in it, right? You just have to do things that look good to you. And everybody knows what like you wouldn't respect, right? Like if you're like, dude, no, you know what? My car is fine. And then you make fun of, 1994 Toyota Corollas and that's what you drive, then you probably shouldn't be driving a Toyota Corolla.
That's so true. I mean, it's those little things that you think don't matter that matter the most, because it's like those subtleties when someone has like extreme attention to detail, or they're like their cover banner has like, those transposed or transparent pictures in the background of like their lifestyle that you can barely see. It's that little attention to detail that really makes it pop, where you're like, gosh, they really took the time to create that background, or, they made sure that their podcast quality is amazing, or to bring on the right guests. So I think all of that goes into that whole attention currency. All those little things add up to retain people. And it's like the new standard, right? If you have terrible audio or a terrible background, like you're going to lose people immediately. Like you have to have those basic things on top of an amazing podcast or amazing content. In my opinion, that's from what I've seen. Because if I try to watch a YouTube video or listen to a podcast and it's fuzzy, or like there's random noises, or like 20 ads, like I leave, right? Everything's got to be well thought out.
Yeah. And that's honestly what I kind of dislike about when you first start a podcast, especially mine.
It's got to be like so well done.
Well, my first episode, impeccable, right? Like great audio. Next 4 episodes, horrible audio. Couldn't figure it out. Almost quit. Then I got really good at it. Then I changed over from like recording locally on the computer to a thing called Zencaster, which was on the cloud. I bought a camera at the time and my thing. I didn't realize that it was recording on the camera's microphone rather than on this.
I've done that.
And I'm like, dude, why can't I figure this out? So I had bad audio. And the reason I'm saying this is because those episodes are still up.
You still publish them, yeah.
And it's hard, right? Because you're like, dude, I know people are not going to respect me based on this, but you need to leave them up so that people see the progression in them. But yeah, I hope that if anybody does go listen to my podcast, we figured it out. I'm sorry. It just happened to be that I bought the camera and the microphone at the same time. And
gosh, yeah, we've all been there. And like now I quadruple check, because like I have a USB webcam that's like 1080p. And it has a microphone, but it's not that great. And the same things happen to me. Or even like these headphones, this has little microphones, like $10. So the quality is not going to be as good out of this as like my Yeti blackout mic. But yeah, you live and you learn, right? I love how you said you still leave it up there so people can see the progression, to understand like you did start. No one like starts at the very top. You got to start at the bottom with everyone else, and you work your way up there. Some people get there faster by iterating and learning and aligning themselves with the right people. But at the end of the day, it just comes with experience and practice and repetitions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, dude, I really love this conversation. I know we had a 30-minute slot booked and we're kind of at the end of that time. Did you have any like last minute takeaways or anything you wanted to cover? I mean, I got a couple of minutes if you do as well.
Yeah. What I'll say is like with anything that you put out, because we're all trying to get the attention of someone else. We all want somebody to do something, right? Like that's what technically like that's what an influencer is, and that's why I still really like the word. I know that it's like people are tainted. They're like, oh, influencers.
It's bad now, yeah.
Yeah, it's bad, but I like it because to me, what influence is, it means that you actually have enough credibility to get people to take an action based on what you say.
Yes.
And for me, what I realized is that I've been trying to take like the straight route, you know what I mean? Like no fake Lamborghinis, not promising stuff, not trying to get like $3,000 up front and then be like, hey, you can't hear from Ruben for 3 months at a time, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard to grow influence. But when you do, and you see that people are willing to go from Instagram to YouTube, which it doesn't seem like that's a big step, but it is. People hate leaving one platform to the next. When you see that people are willing to do that just because they've seen enough of you, because you've done enough, because you've said the right things, because they trust you and you've done enough things to make them trust you in the right way. It's good. So I like the word influence. And where I'm going with this is it's hard to get that influence, but the way to do it is to really think about the person that you're trying to influence, right? And even for podcast, I'm telling you, like I've been going through this whole shift because I thought I was doing everything right and I've been slowly growing, and my podcast numbers were stable. And I was like, I wonder how I could grow this. And most people don't look at the small little basic core fundamentals. So if somebody's listening and you have a podcast, right? See, you see how I do it. And if you have a podcast, right? I'm telling you, it's all training, but it's all fundamentals. It's all fundamentals. If you have a podcast, you believe it or not, the title of the episode will get you more listeners. And
that's the hardest part to come up with.
Yeah. And I cracked it. Or I don't know if I cracked it perfectly, but I cracked it to where, I would have, let's say, 80 in the first week of my episode when I dropped it. And now it's going to like 100 to 110 just by changing the way that I'm doing the titles.
Wow.
And what I realized is people were just choosing not to listen to them because they didn't seem interesting, right?
Yeah.
So what I do is I just straight up put what I think the person would want to learn based on my episode in the title. So before I would put like the person's whatever their what thing was, the title of what their thing was, or if they had a program or something like that, right? Now, like the last one we did was with this lady named Adrienne Miller, and she does marketing and she does sales and all this other stuff. So I could have put her business name. I could have put like what we talked about. What I put instead, which we did talk about, and it's kind of reaching, but I put as the title, the indirect sales conversation that leads to sales.
Nice. So it's more of that, instead of like, who's this company, who's this person? It's like what you're speaking to that person who's about to click play. What is it that they want to learn?
Correct. And if you think about it, it's a very interesting, like, what the hell is indirect sales conversation and why the hell does it lead to sales?
Yeah.
And then, so
that's
we had
good
another
copywriting too. You're like the hidden secret of how to do this in 3 steps. And you're like, what is
I'm
it?
a marketer. You know what I mean? Like,
you're such a marketer. I love it. I need to work on those skills.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, it's not hard. We had another one where this dude is trying to make millionaires and he's a millionaire, right? So I put millionaire making millionaires, right? Which seemed like a good thing. And then I put, I forgot what I changed it to, but it was like, how a millionaire can make you a millionaire or something like that, right? So I'm just changing little subtleties. There was another guy, the marketing genius with Omar, blah, blah, blah. And instead I changed it to how to become how to disrupt the marketing in any industry that you might be in or something like that, right? And so it all becomes very like, there's a secret in this episode, or there's a thing that you would want to learn in this episode. And there's still not going to be for everybody, but it creates curiosity.
Curiosity, boom. That is what it's like, the little hook. You're putting these little hooks out there, and all you need is for somebody to find it interesting enough to bite and then listen to the episode, follow your call to action, or maybe even become a little more interested in who you are, what kind of information you have, especially if it's like their first time listening to your show. If you make that little promise and you deliver on it, boom, you have a subscriber, you have someone who's going to come back. Instead of be like, this isn't for me, or like the title had nothing to do with the episode, I'm out.
Yeah. Engagement is the weirdest thing about podcasts, right? Because you can have a lot of people come in and listen to one, but how do you make them listen to 2 or 3? Yeah. And how do you can never know who listened to one. If they choose not to tell you, it's really hard to know who that person was. So the trippiest thing in podcasts is how can you actually get somebody to listen to one and then go, I should listen to another one.
Yeah. And I think, as you get better, like if someone listened to one of my first episodes or one of yours, like with the audio being fuzzy, maybe that would be a bad first impression. But usually if they listen to the newest one and you're continually getting better, like if they love that, they may love you enough at this point where they'll listen to the old stuff and deal with it. But if they listen to that old stuff that wasn't that great, maybe you lose them forever. So I think just continuing to improve, get a little bit better each episode. People who find you on your latest episode, like my 240th episode, is going to be a lot better received than like episode 2, where I'm like reading off a paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, today's episode is about this.
Yeah. With the first episodes where you have like 5 preset questions and you have to kind of maneuver
So
even though
bad.
you're not done through the first question. You're like, and moving on to the next subject. Yeah.
Without a like smooth transition. Yeah. Gosh, I really loved the show, Ruben. We talked about a lot of great stuff. I mean, attention, again, that's like the core of this. How do you do it? Of course, asking those questions, putting your title, marketing like a true genius, and really making it interesting to the person who's about to click on that. So thank you for all those nuggets. And where can our audience go to learn more about you? Obviously, you're on social media, you got YouTube and everything.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to listen to the podcast, it's #INFORTHEKILL. And it's on every platform. I'm serious. Like if you can't find it on whatever platform you listen to, then I'm sorry at this point. If they want to learn more about me or just get a hold of me, it's my Instagram, which is at I am Ruben Alvarez. There's no weird spelling to my name, RUBEN, at I am Ruben Alvarez.
Okay, awesome, Ruben. Well, thank you once again. I'm going to drop all those links in the show notes, and I'll let you know as soon as this episode is live. Can't wait to share this with my audience.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank you.